My earliest memories of my mother often include her sewing machine. Mom made everything, from Christmas and Easter outfits for my siblings and me to costumes for school plays and local events. Best of all, when I was 10, she surprised me with my very own sewing machine, a beautiful 1920s cabinet machine that I cherished for years. Mom and I collected dolls together and loved reproducing period outfits for them. Mom also started a business of sewing and selling soft sculpture dolls, inspiring me to start making them in miniature and selling them as well. Eventually, Mom taught me everything from making dress patterns to upholstering furniture, skills I'm so thankful to have and enjoy sharing with others. I thought it would be fun to sit down and interview Mom about what inspired her to learn to sew and what she loves about it. I hope you enjoy watching my contagiously joyful mother share her passion with you as much as I enjoyed shooting this video with her. What is your earliest sewing memory?
Watching my mother sew underwear for us girls out of feed sack fabric that she had gotten on a Singer treadle machine.
Why did she use a Singer treadle?
We did not have electricity. We lived in Brazil. My parents were missionaries in Brazil, and her treadle machine was the only thing that we had.
Was that the only thing she sewed, or did she sew other things?
Mostly she just made panties for us.
She wasn't a big seamstress then?
No.
Okay.
Her mother was the seamstress.
Right. So tell me about your grandmother. This is your grandma Betty, right?
Yes. I was named after my mother, Margaret Elizabeth, but she nicknamed me Betty, B-E-T-T-I-E, after my grandmother Betty. So then she'd tell me story after story after story about all the things that her mom did. She would look at a picture in a magazine or a book or somewhere else and copy all those patterns, all those dresses. I have a picture of my grandmother standing with all of her siblings, and she stands out. The men are on one side, the ladies are on the other side. Grandma Betty is in the middle. The men are wearing dark pants and white shirts, the women dark skirts and white blouses, and my grandmother has a colored Titanic dress. Just looks absolutely out of the picture.
Did she have red hair?
She had red hair, yes.
Yeah, so yeah. She was a standout.
Yeah.
Who else did she sew for? Wasn't she in Georgia?
Oh, no, our grandfather was from Florida, and he owned a store, and he would go to New York and buy the latest fashions and everything and come back, and he had a good store. Then when the Depression came, Grandma Betty started sewing for other people. And so she sewed mostly clothing for other people. She had an accident. I don't know how old she was. She had an accident with scissors, and scissor poked her eye, and she lost the vision in that eye. Most of her sewing days were spent with one eye.
Wow. With one eye, she was still...
One eye, she still did all of that.
Making patterns from pictures and cutting out clothes
Yep.
and sewing them.
Yep.
That's incredible. So anybody who thinks, I can't do this because I'm lacking in skill, well, at least you have both of your eyes.
True.
When did you decide you wanted to learn to sew?
Well, when I learned all the stories about my grandmother, and my name was hers, and I felt like I had to live up to her name. And so I began making clothes for my dolls. And because my siblings, there were 4 girls, and nobody liked dolls except me, and they would get into my sewing scissors and my little pieces of fabric left over. So I would hide behind my bedroom door and stitch away, put my doll on the fabric, cut around, and try to make a dress for her. So that was my first sewing.
And then how did you go from there, from cutting out doll clothes to actually stitching things for yourself or other people? Was it just a process over time?
Well, I had a big piece of fabric that Mom gave me that I could make doll clothes for my siblings. But it was big enough for one of the little girls, neighbor girls who lived across the street. And so I decided to make her a dress. So I laid the fabric on the floor, and she lay down. I took a crayon, no magic markers back then, but I took a crayon and marked her silhouette on there, giving a little room for the skirt to go out but then it didn't fit her because I didn't leave enough room for seam allowance. So my mother said, look, honey, next time we get some fabric and you want to make a dress for the little girl, why don't we give her mother the fabric and let her mother do it?
Oh.
And it was a blow on me, and I realized I needed to know more about sewing than just what I was doing with my dolls.
You were doing it kind of like you'd make a paper doll dress.
Yes.
Yeah. Because that logically makes sense to a child. You just aren't thinking in 3 dimensions yet.
No.
I remember being amazed that I could show you a picture of a costume I wanted, and without a pattern, you'd figure out how all the pieces would look and just cut them out. And I thought that was basically magic until you taught me how to do it and how to visualize what something flat will look like after it's sewn.
Yes.
So that is the most exciting part of sewing to me, is that you can go from this flat thing to this 3-dimensional object of beauty. And I think you said that's your favorite part of sewing.
My favorite part of sewing is when you're grabbing the fabric and it is a sleeve, it is a bodice, it has shape, and it's coming together, and that's exciting. The flat fabric is just flat. But when you start cutting out the pieces and putting them together, that's a thrill.
What was the first costume you ever made?
We traveled from Brazil to the United States for furlough. We were all young. I was old enough to be sewing, but we had to have a costume party crossing the equator. There was a celebration, a party on board crossing the equator. And so my daddy had the idea of taking an old sheet that we had in all of our clothing stuff and wrapping it around me and making me into a mermaid. So the ship lines gave us crayons and papers and stuff to keep children happy. And we used all the green crayons up and colored scales on this sheet. And then I wrapped it around myself. My dad made me the flippers. Now, it's very hard to walk with your ankles tightly bound.
It's like a hobble skirt.
Yes, but that was my first costume.
I wish you had a picture of that. I'd love
Oh,
to
I
see
wish I had it too.
What is your very favorite thing to sew? If you can pick one.
Oh, pick one?
Okay, pick a couple. What do you really like sewing? Because you made soft sculpture dolls at one point.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's another thing where things coming to life, making dolls. I actually enjoy upholstering, turning something old into something that's newer.
Yeah.
And so I've done that.
And tell me how you learned to upholster, because you didn't go to school for that.
No, no. My husband and I were working with drug addicts, and people would donate furniture to us. Well, there was some furniture that really needed fixing up. So I went to the local library, gathered every single book on upholstering that I could find, from how to take the chair apart or the fabric off to how to do the chair. So my first chair that I covered was circular back. Never want to do that again. It came out okay. So then I did 2 more chairs for the living room downstairs. And then my first big couch, someone had an Elizabethan couch with the carved metal and all of that kind of stuff, the rolled arms, and wanted me to cover it in a brocade, is that?
Yeah.
And I had to work around the shape of the wood and the shape of the arms and everything. It took a long time. That was my longest ever project.
So do you think upholstery is your most unusual sewing skill, or is there another job you've done that's a little crazier than redoing a couch?
Well, I thought of upholstering as just basically doing chairs, couches, things like that. Then we got a car for Jennie. We got a Volvo station wagon for Jennie, and the seats were torn, so I upholstered her car, including putting piping on everything. That was my first experience really doing piping. it was kind of a corduroy sort of burgundy fabric.
Yeah, I remember.
And did the front seats and the back bench there. That was unusual. And then my husband was a pilot, and he had a friend at the airport who was interested in whether I could upholster his airplane for him. I'd never done that. I had to upholster everything in layers. The walls of the airplane, and then the area where I had to snap something on so that it could pull the fabric down because there was a compartment there. And then the seat covers, of course.
Tell me about sewing with other girls in college. Because I know in the 60s, there's the whole fad of making paper dresses, but then girls were actually getting into fashioning their own stuff. And you were called Granny because you helped a lot of girls with various projects and life skills.
Well, when I came to the States to go to American schools for my senior year, it was a culture shock, very bad culture shock. People were wearing things like India fabric madras, pretty colored plaid fabric. I thought that, okay, that's okay. But they told me it had to be real. It had to be able to bleed. It wasn't real madras fabric from India unless it bled. And I said, what do you mean bleed? You know, the colors come when you wash it, come out. And I remember my mother going into fabric stores, wetting her fingers, touching the fabric, and if any paint came off, she would not buy it. So that was part of my culture shock. I'm not going to ever use madras. So when I went away to college, one of the supporting churches for my mom and dad being missionaries gave me a sewing machine. That was my Singer sewing machine. It was a very nice one, and I used it for years and years. So I made my own clothes, and the fashions, you know, that no chemise, please, I don't know where to squeeze, was a famous song about the time in the 60s there. And so I made more fitted dresses. When I was a junior, there were 6 girls that came in to the freshman class on my floor, and they wanted to learn how to sew. So I taught them different things. And they call me Granny. I wasn't that much older than they were, but I had more experience at least. So I was Granny. And then when I started dating the man whom I married, we had a Halloween party, and his mother, my mother-in-law could really sew. I mean, she could look at things and do things on a tiny little Singer sewing machine. And so she had made him a Flash costume. The pants, the shoes with the flashy wings and the flash across the chest. So he wore that to the Halloween party. So the girls started calling us Granny and the Flash. So I was Granny and the Flash until I graduated and moved out.
Yeah, what was that project that you liked the least?
When I was working in North Carolina, one of the ladies in the church had a pattern, a Vogue pattern. I did Simplicity in McCall's because the title is simple. The Vogue patterns were very intricate. And the thing that she wanted me to make, she had a wonderful wool fabric. She wanted a lined wool coat, had never done lining before. Wool coat, the fabric was beautiful. The pattern was double-breasted with placket buttonholes and a back belt on it with buttonholes, and of course the lining. I did it. I learned a lot. I learned that I never wanted to do it again.
What's your favorite fabric to work with?
Well, mostly for health reasons, I like to use cotton only. It's easiest to work with because the lines are straight. You don't get it crooked. But I love challis and the flowy fabrics and swirly, how they work. But I have a cutting board that is ruled. and I put the fabric with the edge and pin it down, and then try to pin the whole thing onto that cardboard so that it's not skewed. I've had things that I've made that when I put it on, the hem goes down on one side and up on the other. And so I had to learn how not to get too flowy.
What's your least favorite fabric to work with? Most difficult, or just something that if someone asks you to make something out of it, you're like, yeah.
Oh, anything sheer. I had to make a rehearsal dress for a bride that requested, and it was a sheer fabric on top of a silken fabric, and she wanted me to make it. And that is what prompted me to buy a serger. So I went to a friend at church who had a serger, because I was going to have to serge all the edges and all the seams.
What's your favorite seam finish? Because we all know that if you don't finish your seams inside, like with a serger, if you don't have a serger and you don't finish those seams, they'll unravel in the wash or they'll just get wonky. And to have a nice finish, if you don't have a serger, what's your go-to seam? Like a flat felled seam, a French seam, Hong Kong finish?
I don't even know what Hong Kong finish is.
Okay.
You're way beyond me, daughter.
Or using pinking shears. That's how they used to finish seams in the 50s. You just
Oh,
pink them all.
I don't like pinking shears. They don't work really very well. If you have some, why don't you try learning a different way to finish your seams?
So what would you choose if you can't use a serger?
I like to go ahead and sew the 5/8 inch seam, clip off one side to 1/4 inch, fold over the other side, and then stitch it. And so you have no selvages whatsoever.
What is advice for someone who wants to learn to sew but doesn't have access to a class?
Find somebody who sews and ask if they're willing to apprentice you or to teach you.
What if there is nobody near you who likes to sew?
Right now, I think you can go online and there'll be sewing courses. There'll be all kinds of information. It's like when I was starting to upholster, I checked out the library. Now all you have to do is just go online, ask a question, and there are tons of materials.
What if someone has done things like pillowcases and hemming, but they're just really afraid to take that plunge into making a dress?
Find an old sheet, take your pattern pieces, make a dress or whatever you're going to make out of the sheeting fabric, any kind of scrap fabric, and baste stitch it. Stitch it with the longest stitch possible on the machine, and then try it on. Try the bodice on, make sure the shoulder's not too wide or not too narrow, how you adjust your pattern. Pin the sides, the sleeves, any darts. You may have to adjust if your bosom is high or if your bosom is low. Some of these things are a little more complicated, but they're doable. And I always made an outfit out of sheeting.
A lot of people say, yeah, but that's such an extra step. I just want to make the dress. And I try to explain, you will be so much happier if you already fit it on fabric you don't care about. So that's basically what you're saying.
Yes.
Find a sheet
Yes.
like Scarlett O'Hara. Make a dress. Because if you make mistakes on that, you don't feel so fussed about it. What's a good first project to start with? Like, let's say you're intimidated by doing an entire dress.
Well, a skirt. A skirt is a very good first step because it's basically side seams, front seams, or whatever. It's just easier to fit. As a skirt made, you might want to make a top. You can make a t-shirt top, or you can make fabric, different kind of fabric tops, and learn how to do something that'll fit you. Whether you want your sleeves down, low, high, no sleeves, sleeveless dress, how to put in the facing. I think I'd rather put in a sleeve than do the facings.
What are sewing books or resources you would highly recommend?
Lots of libraries have sales of their books that no people use or check out. So check out anything, flea market, bookstores, yes. You can find books on everything.
But what's one go-to project that you enjoy that you could finish in an afternoon?
A skirt.
A skirt.
A skirt. And I like to do denim. I like to do them with flares and pockets. Yes, pockets. They have to be on both sides.
Exactly.
And that's easy because a denim skirt or a khaki skirt is something I can wear any t-shirt with, any blouse with. And so that I want a new outfit, I'll do that.
That's my favorite thing about sewing is that if I don't have something in my wardrobe, I can make it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm never limited by what's in the stores or what's in style. I just make what I like.
Yeah.
I think my motto is like the one from Ratatouille, where he says anyone can cook, but I just say anyone can sew. If you can read and you can look things up online and you're willing to put in the time, you can learn to sew anything. Nothing should stop
I
you.
agree.
Any other thing you would want to pass on to somebody who's interested in sewing?
Don't give up. Don't give up. And you'll become passionate about it. And once you're passionate about it, about something, it's not a chore. It's not a chore, it's a delight.
What if the world had more of your smile? What if the wind could spread your love? What if your sweetness could reach everyone? There'd be no wars. Maybe the birds will sing about your heart. Maybe the trees will whisper the word. Maybe the sun will spread your joy to the one